Hey, marketing matches, welcome back to part two of keywords versus key phrases. So, today, as promised, what I want to do is I want to talk about the 7 steps on how to strengthen your site's keywords. So, very important. So, let's get started. Now, these 7 tips that I'm sharing with you were based off of what I've heard a lot of business owners complain to me about when I've started working with them with strengthening their content, and these are the topics I want to share with you, but I also want to share with you the solution. So let's get started. So the first one is my site is not ranking well even though I'm using trending keywords. So oftentimes this usually means that they're using competitive keywords. So when we use competitive keywords, we definitely place ourselves into a large pool shared with many others, and most of those people are pretty big as far as like owning those keywords. Usually the big companies have those keywords, so we want to be thinking key phrases. That's those long-tailed keywords that usually include 3 to 4 words. So you've heard me use the example plant-based burger stand in Sherman Oaks in all my examples. That's a great example of a key phrase. And the key phrase always needs to be in line with the search language of your audience, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so also you'll be competing against deep pocket businesses who will definitely outrank you, right? It's sort of like David going up against Goliath. So that's why it's really important that we develop that key phrase. We're not using a competitive keyword. We can start with a keyword. We could see what's trending with our audience, and then turn that into a key phrase. Most definitely, we can do that. Now, if your site is new, it's best to use, like I'm saying, a key phrase instead, because you will rank much better. You will thin out the playing field because you're not using, like in my case, I'm not just using plant-based, or I'm not just using burgers. I'm using a key phrase that's very specific to the search language of the audience I need coming into my plant-based burger stand. So that's why I use plant-based burger stand in Sherman Oaks. So that's a great key phrase that's going to separate me from a lot of the burger stands. It's going to be right in line with what my audience is probably using, or I'm very confident that they're going to be using that as their search phrase to find me. So and then also use non-competitive keywords that are productive or location or product or location specific. So like I said, plant-based burgers in Sherman Oaks. Very specific to location, very specific to the product, right? Okay. All right, here's a pro tip for you. Learn what keywords and phrases your audience will likely use. So if you have not checked out what's in your marketing toolbox, I encourage you to check out the first episode where I go into defining your target audience. And in that segment, you will learn all about how we learn what that search language is so we can develop a good key phrase strategy for our website. All right. The next one was my site is not ranking well even though I am using unique keywords. Well, it's best to use keywords and phrases you know your audience will use. So if they're using, let's say, residential plumbing in Santa Clarita or something, you may not be found under underground pipe service, right? Because that may be too general, so we want to be very specific. Residential plumbing, very specific. Location in Santa Clarita, that's very specific. Okay, so that could be a very good key phrase, provided that we did our homework and we know that that's in the search language of your audience. All right. Knowing the language of your customers will drive the right traffic to your site. That's just fact. Okay, so that's why it pays to do your research on the language that your primary and secondary audience is using. Okay, keywords too unique to attract the wrong customer and increase your bounce rate. This is where I find that a lot of business owners will try to be so unique that it actually works against them. So we're not, the goal is not to be so unique that even your audience is having a tough time finding you. It's just to dial in on the search language that's being used by your audience. When you do that, good things are going to happen. So don't get fixated on the big numbers. Like, we're not trying to get under a certain number. I mean, we don't want to swim in a large ocean, yes, but we definitely want to just find that key phrase that's going to bring over the right audience. So first and foremost, let's not write for the bots. Let's write for understanding our audience. How are they, what language are they using? What's their marketing mentality? We need to know all that stuff. So if you're like, that sounds interesting, I think I need to know about that, then go back to my first presentation, and I believe it's the first slide or presentation in the What's in Your Marketing Toolbox. So. Also, if able, sample survey. Oh, that's the best thing you could do. If you really want to know what's going on with your audience, do a sample survey. I'm not talking like 10 people. I really want you to go out there, talk to 50, 75, maybe even 100. And you'll really start seeing some patterns here, like how they prefer to be marketed to, what their search language is, what their habits and behaviors are. You can find all that when you're sample surveying your audience. Those would be the people that you feel are the ones likely to be interested in your product and or service, okay? All right, so another pro tip for you is before you write any page, content, please map out your key phrase strategy. It's going to help you tremendously. So, by the way, if you have any questions about this segment, I want you to feel free to write to me at Darren, D-A-R-R-E-N, at the letter U, netdesign.com. And if I get your email, I'll send you a 10-point content planner that makes all this stuff very easy for you to take on yourself. So feel free to email me any of your questions. All right. Moving right along. The third one that I ran into is my site is not ranking well even though I am repeating keywords. So this is something we definitely don't want to do. We call it keyword or key phrase recycling or cannibalism. That's where you're competing against your own self. Your site is competing against its pages because where we could have had a unique key phrase representing just that one page, instead we just copied and pasted it on every page. So it confuses, of course, the search engine browsers because they're like, well, what page do you want me to bring up? And it worked against you because you had a perfectly good key phrase. We should have just, gone with another key phrase to represent, your other essential pages. So never do the recycling or cannibalism of your key phrases. One key phrase per page. Do not recycle. And those who have online stores, I encourage you to do the same. Take the same approach. Do not copy and paste the same product descriptions. Write unique descriptions for each of your products that would have the search language of your audience. You will open up your catch net as far as bringing over people more organically for what they're looking for with your product or service, okay? Also, the keyword or phrase should only be used and reinforced on one page. So that excludes the business and the people and the names, but meaning like if you wanted to talk about your business name, you wanted to include that, yeah, you can mention that multiple times throughout the website. But as far as the key phrase, you want to keep that to one page and have that focus there. So repeating the keywords will confuse the search engines, like I said, with the cannibalism. And then also, if you have already done this, don't worry about it. These can be fixed. All you have to do is just refocus your key phrase attention on each specific page, which we can do very easily together, or just you take it upon yourself to map out what those key phrases are going to be for each one of your essential pages. Remember, I'm not wanting you to do this to every single page, only the essential pages that you want people to see on a search return. So I would think like your home page, about page, product page, service page, things like that is where you want to be. Okay. Oh, we got another pro tip. The keyword list. Be certain your keywords being used in your audience search language is used to reflect your audience's search language so they can find your product or service. Remember, they do not know your name, they do not know your signature product, they don't know your business name yet. So that's why we want to focus on the search language. Okay. Now, I know that this next one, it's kind of interesting. Let's see, let me bring this up. My site is not ranking well, even though I'm using exact keywords. So using related terms within your content, like helpful SEO keyword tips, can also be helpful SEO tips or keyword tips. What we can do is we can use what's called synonyms to expand our catch net. So as long as it's relevant to what you're talking about on the page, I encourage you to do that. So if you just use the exact phrase, you may not be reaching all the people that you can. So that's why I say having synonyms. So what do I mean by that? Well, if I wanted to, instead of saying plant-based burgers, I could say meatless. I could say vegetarian. I could, there's other maybe words that people would use, but it's related to my original key phrase. So search engines will also store that. Like, oh, okay, that's a relevant connection there to the original key phrase. So we're going to store that as a synonym. So I do encourage you to create your key phrase synonyms in addition to the key phrase that you're focusing on for the page. So if you have WordPress, Shopify also has this, but there are SEO programs that can help you with strengthening your key phrase focus and where to put it, and it will give you a score. So it can really help you. Not all web development platforms have this, so if you feel like this is something that you need, then do your homework and find the platform that has those accommodations for you. The 10-point content planner, by the way, again, if you email me a question, what have you, I'm more than happy to send you my 10-point content planner. The fifth one, my site is not ranking well even though I have a lot of keywords. And so this is often overlooked by owners and glossed over by developers because of the time and energy involved. See, what happens is they have a lot of keywords that's thrown out on their website, but it's not doing them any good. Why? Because if you look at the back end, there's nothing that is being reinforced by these key phrases. It's basically the developer or the business owner just saying, oh, I think I want to be found under these keywords, but you're not doing anything to reinforce it. So you're running the risk of being labeled as being a keyword stuffer. So be careful. Remember, you want to have one key phrase per important page and focus on that, and then have your relevant synonyms to support that key phrase, okay? So a weak or inconsistent keyword strategy will run the risk of search engines attracting the wrong consumer to your website, right? Because we're not really developing a focused strategy here. And then we're also leaving it up for search engine bots to figure it out because you don't have that focus in place. So it's critical that you take the time to define the audience language before you create any content at all. And it starts with the key phrase focus, the order of information, and again, that 10-point content planner would be a great help to you, so keep that in mind. So also update your key phrase or keyword list regularly, because there's things that trends will change with your audience. So it could be that your audience was using pandemic and now they may be using post-pandemic, and that can make a big difference in how they're finding you or your product or service. So update your key phrases if you feel that there's been a trend, there's been some sort of change amongst your audience. Go back and update your key phrases. It's not a major undertaking. It's a simple, usually a simple tweak to your content and you're good to go. So the sixth one is my site's not ranking well even though I use singular keywords. So this is a very interesting thing. It's a mind blower, actually. If you were to do a search and have custom home and do a search for custom homes, you will see a huge difference in the search return. So that's why it really pays to be careful with the key phrase that you select. You really teeter on bringing over the wrong traffic if you're not careful with your strategies. So work boot versus work boots. That could be work boot specifically. I'm looking for a work boot. Work boots. I'm probably doing a product comparison, so I'm going to get a much different search return result, won't I? So be careful. Use the browser to do a litmus test with your key phrase that you think you'd want to use, and make sure that you look at the search return. Does it look like they're relevant, businesses that's in the same dugout as the product or service that you're providing? That's what you do want to look at. If you're way off, go back to the drawing board, because that key phrase is not going to work for you. It's not going to draw over the right traffic then, right? Okay, so use that. That's a great free resource to just take a snapshot of what your key phrase strategy could be bringing over to the website. Do your research on your user's intent. If it's singular, they may likely be looking for info. If it's plural, they're probably looking to compare products, like I said. And then singular and plural use of the keywords draw different interests as stated above. Like I mentioned, custom home versus custom homes. So please use that browser to test it out. So the keyword list, add as many relevant keywords as you wish. Then I want you to go back and I want you to convert it into a key phrase that's going to work for you, because you know that key phrase that you're putting together is in line with your audience's search language, right? Do I sound like a broken record? Yes, I should. So I hope this is like sinking in. The key phrase, it all depends on, it's got to reflect your audience's search language, okay? And then the last one, my site is not ranking even though I used strong keywords. Well, like I said, things change, and so do viewer habits and search habits. So it's good practice to keep checking back and making sure that you're still catering to that audience, because remember, that's what it's all about. It's not what you think or what I think. We're making every decision about your marketing based on what? Your primary and secondary markets, because those are the ones who are looking for your product or service, right? To effectively evaluate your keyword, switch your browser to private mode, because I'll work with a lot of business owners and they're like, see, I've come up at the top with this keyword. You're not, because what you're doing is you already have a history, and you've probably visited your website already multiple times, so it's just showing you based on your history. So what I would do is I would go into private mode or incognito in your browser, and that's truly going to give you a good idea of where you really rank, okay? So I would evaluate your key phrase when you do your testing to see how relevant it is as far as like your search return when you test it out in the browser. Do it in incognito or in private mode, okay? And you're really going to get a true sample of how that key phrase is going to work for you. Google Trends is a great tool. I like to use it because you can find out from your audience what's trending by the day, week, month, year, so on. So that is going to help us determine, well, this seems to be a keyword that's trending with my audience right now. That's fantastic. Now what do? That's right. We go back to the drawing board and we take that keyword and we convert it into a key phrase that we know our audience is using. That's right. Yeah. All right. So the pro tip is it's good to evaluate so you know whether to use more competitive keywords or focus on long-tailed variants. All right. So that's it. I want to thank you guys so much for joining me today. The key takeaways that I want you to remember is this. The competitive keywords, you got to make sure that you avoid competitive keywords. Make them non-competitive for yourself. How do we do that? Because we take that keyword and we turn it into a key phrase that our audience is going to use, is using to find your product or service. Unique keywords, well, it's great, but avoid using unique keywords that are too unique. So you want to make sure that the uniqueness comes from just focusing it on the language, the mentality, the habits, the behaviors of your audience. Oops, sorry. And then also do your homework. Understand your users' search language in order to develop your keyword list. As far as keyword trashing, try to avoid that. That's that keyword cannibalism or recycling. When you've got a good key phrase, you assign it to one page and you just use now another key phrase for the next essential page. So stay away from trashing of perfectly good key phrases. And then look at singular or plural. Make sure that when you do run your key phrase through the test, do it through a browser. Do it incognito or in private mode and see what comes back on that search return. Make sure that it's the returns that are relevant to what you're trying to accomplish. You know, the product or service. Are the returns relevant to your product or service? We want to see that, okay? And then lastly, the keyword evaluation. You want to perform regularly, like once a month or maybe twice a month. Just if you feel like, whoa, there's been some changes in my industry or with the target audiences that I want brought over, we want to adjust for that. So those are the 7 tips and the key takeaways that I'd like for you to remember. Please connect with me at Darren at UNet Design, and you will receive a gift. Now you can, if your question is selected for question of the week, I will definitely send you an ADA compliance checklist, so you can compare that to your website, making sure that it's American Disability Act compliant. Okay, that's a very big thing. All right, folks. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me on this segment. I do hope that you learned a lot. Remember, if you are feeling like, hey, I need to know more about the search language and marketing mentalities, go back to my presentation on what's in your marketing toolbox. All right, and please, if you have not subscribed yet to this channel, please do, and you'll get a shoulder tap whenever there's a new episode. As always, thank you so much for taking interest in my program, and I wish you all the best. Take care, everyone.